Welcome back to CamBro Conversations. In today's conversation, we're talking all things dating and attraction for men. To do so, I'm joined by the leading expert in that space, Kezia Noble. Kezia, thanks for joining me.
How are you? Okay.
Yes, delighted to have you and excited to dive into this one. And it's a topic that I think there's enough people discussing it now, particularly people like yourself, but probably not discussing it to some of the circles that I'm speaking to, which is a very self-development, business, fitness, and career focused individuals. And there's maybe an aversion to treating things like dating in the same way as you would maybe treat other habits and behaviors that you're trying to optimize, because we maybe still believe in like spark and romance. How do you overcome those barriers with people maybe like myself who are traditionally quite theory minded?
Right. There's actually quite a lot of points in that question. So I'm going to try and address them all. And I'm going to try not to go off on a tangent because obviously helping people get better at building attraction, dating, seduction is something that I'm super passionate about. So I can sometimes drift, but I will try and manage it. So the first thing is, why are people not really kind of like taking action of this area of their life where they're happy to focus in on their health, their well-being, their physicality? Because there's something about not being able to attract people or date the kind of people you want. There's something associated with that and loneliness. And with fitness or something like this, it's more, the only thing that's associated with it is that you were at some point lazy, or you didn't have your eye on, how you looked, or how your, what condition your body was in. It's not really embarrassing, but if you're like, look, I suck at talking to women, or I suck at talking to men, immediately people think, oh, is there something wrong with you? Is there, are you a bit lonely? Are you the 40-year-old virgin? They go to like kind of extremes. But the truth is that most people, they attract the people they don't really want, and they don't know how to go about actually communicating their best self to the people that they're actually attracted to. Because when we are actually attracted to someone, including me, we start behaving weird. All of us. When I say weird, I don't mean we start acting like freaky, strange people, but we're not ourselves. We're trying to over impress, or we are very shy and very guarded because we don't want to mess up. And then when we're talking to someone that, whatever, that kind of person where if they like you or they don't like you, you don't care either way. Suddenly the person likes you because you're relaxed, you're very engaged with them. You're not trying to be something you're not. And that's the thing. That's all it is the ones that we like, we fall to pieces. We don't have a clue. And that's where I step in, which is, showing guys. I don't really help women. I do help women sometimes, but most of my students are men. So I'll just say men for the sake of it now, for the sake of the argument, for the sake of time, sorry, that I show men how to approach, build up a conversation, build up rapport, build up a connection with women that they like, and understanding what women find attractive without it having to have any conflict with who they are. So not trying to, if somebody is an introvert, I won't try and make them an extrovert. If someone's an extrovert, I won't try and make them an introvert. I'll work with what they have so they can communicate it in the most appealing way possible. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I think it's something that we all suffer from, but people just jump onto the idea that there's something wrong with you or that you're lonely. And usually those people are just very good with the opposite sex. They've always been good, or they've got lucky at some point. They've got lucky. They got their girlfriend early. They got their girlfriend at that sweet age of 26, and they're settled down. And so they can sort of look at it like, why don't you have a girlfriend? I found someone, why haven't you? But then again, it goes to another point. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent a bit here, but it goes on to a second point here, which is, well, some people are not happy to settle. A lot of people are super happy to settle. They don't believe that they have the potential to get anything better than who they're with. Now that sounds very cold. A lot of people might say, oh, but what if they love that person? Sure, okay, of course there's love. But I've seen a lot of people just settle because they think, I will not get anyone else. This is the best I can get. And there are people out there who just don't want to settle. They have, they believe that they have potential. And I think that's the same type of people that go to the gym.
Yeah, you have aspirational people in many walks of life, but maybe in some areas they don't have that. So for example, you have very successful businessmen who aren't aspirational about their health. And then you have very aspirational people about their physique who you've described there would settle for a partner that maybe wouldn't tick their boxes if they were truly honest with themselves about what they're looking for. Yeah,
exactly that. So that's the first point I wanted to address, but there was a second point that was in your question. What was the last question that you asked me?
It was around how would you sell this part of maybe being a bit more analytical and a bit more scientific towards attraction with some of the techniques that you've got.
Sorry. Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned like the spark or chemistry.
Romance. Yeah, chemistry, romance. Like everyone thinks like maybe they're going to meet somebody and the sparks will fly and that'll be the one.
So when we say sparks, this person gave me the butterflies. It was a thunderbolt experience. They are romanticizing a real experience because we've all had that, like, oh my God, I can't stop thinking about this person. You know, I am literally, you know, a thunderbolt, you know, or I have butterflies every time they see me. It's this excitement and I don't know why. And that's what people say, I don't know why. I don't know what it is. It's something about the person. But that's where I come in. Let's dissect this. Let's break it down step by step. What did this person do? If it wasn't just the looks, because usually the butterflies things happens actually with people that we're not physically immediately attracted to. It's like, we see someone, they're okay, and then they start talking, you go, oh my God, this person's actually stunning, this person's gorgeous. And you don't know why, you're kind of like pulled into it. And so then we say, you know, it was just something about that person, but actually you can break it down step by step of what changed, what were the shifts, when did it occur? And I love doing this, and this is why I got involved. So all the men, if you looked at all the men I've dated, I've been madly attracted to, you would not be able to clearly see what they had in common. I
wouldn't be able to pick your type. I wouldn't be able to say Kezia likes guys that are into this type of activity, that are this height and this color of hair, this color of eyes.
Well, this is a gray area. Actually, I do have a type. Now, This is the thing. So I have a clear type and you have a type, okay? You know, there is some people we're going to look and go, that's my type, you know, whatever it is. I'm putting them to one side and talking about all these guys that weren't physically my type. What do they have in common? It's very hard to see what they have in common. Their lifestyles, their ages, the way they looked, their attitudes were different. So I love to break it down and say, right, what did that person do that made me suddenly go from, you're not my type, to, I want you so much? And most people are just lazy. And they'll say, I'm just going to enjoy the ride. You know, it just feels good. And that's fine, but that's not my job. People do not pay me for me to just say, make her feel butterflies. So you can break it down and you can, again, give a blueprint. You can give guidance and give skills and techniques that will not conflict with that person, who they are, and it's in line with their values. And that's very, very important. This is the difference between what I do and what pickup artists do, because pickup artists will say this line, say that line, and the line might be a good line, but it doesn't sit well with that person. It doesn't sit well. You need something that sits well with you, that's congruent with who you really are. But I could, yeah.
Kezia, when I was doing my research for this podcast, getting prepared, pickup artist is immediately where your mind goes when you think about dating and attraction, particularly as a young guy, when you think about what would maybe come up on YouTube, apart from yourself, of course, and the different people that would be coaching in this space are guys that would be walking up and doing like day game or whatever the term would be to like pick up women in the park or something like that, or at the supermarket. And I'm not saying that these are bad places to meet women and speak to women, as I'm sure we'll get on to, but it's that traditional kind of almost a little bit sleazy where they've got particular lines that they use over and over again. It's a bit of a numbers game where they're just trying to generate conversation and they'll get a lot of rejection, which of course something we need to deal with. But how is it you differentiate from that experience where somebody's maybe got a staple opening line that they use on multiple women and they just hope it works on one?
Look, I don't have any issue with a standard opening line. I actually teach my students that also. I say, look, if you can't think of anything to say, just go in with the line. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with her response. How do you react to her response? How do you respond to her reaction? So for instance, let's say your opening line was what we call a direct line, such as you go up to her and you say, hey, this is so random. Just wanted to come over, say hello, because I think you're gorgeous. You look like a 1950s, I don't know, Hollywood superstar kind of thing. You put your own little thing in there. Now, the girl might stop and she might giggle or whatever, or say thank you. And then you can say to her, hey, where are you from? Okay, that's where it gets really important. Okay, so now she says, for instance, to that, oh, I'm from, let's say she's from another country and she says she's from New York. Now, that's when the attraction has to be, that's when you have to start building attraction. And when I say building attraction, it doesn't mean sexual escalation. It's two different things. It means getting her to be interested in you. So if you've gone in with an opening line and you're like, oh, now I'm just going to just have like a really boring conversation with this girl, then you're not going to get anywhere. So the opening line is just get the attention. You're showing her that you're confident. If again, that was a direct opener. So that's people who, I mean, I can go into that now, why direct openers are better than indirect and why, and the pros and cons of each. But let's just say for this scenario that he's gone there because he wants to make it clear that he's a confident guy and he's that kind of guy who goes for what he wants. Okay, that's in line with who he is. And then she says she's from New York, and then he's like, oh, what's it like there? I've never been, like really boring like that. Already
you're not standing out at all, because a lot of guys will be doing that and they would respond with that, whereas the attraction level needs to come from not uniqueness, but interest, I suppose.
It has to be different to what she's usually heard, but it has to be captivating. So a lot of people say to me, well, I'm a pretty good conversationalist, No, you can't be just good conversationalist when you've got 1 minute to make impact with someone. It's not about just saying, I can hold a conversation. No, your conversation has to be insane, has to be absolutely amazing, and it has to be so impactful and connective. So that's why I teach my students how to really have an engaging, incredible conversation without it making it look like that they're like, performing for the audience.
I really like the idea of that though, Kezia, because away from podcasting and Instagram and all that nonsense, I work in a sales role and I have an opener on my cold call, and then I have what you've given us there as examples of like kind of link phrases to where it might go, and finding points of interest, finding points of rapport, just to move the conversation forwards. And I would back myself, having done 120 odd podcasts and lots of guest appearances, to have a good conversation. But there needs to be some sort of framework to which I work towards, which gives me the reassurance of where I could potentially go. So I really like the idea that you've got maybe your very direct opener to demonstrate interest. And then of course you've got some sort of link phrase to try and demonstrate your interesting ability to be a conversationalist, and rather than just, like you say, asking, oh, what's New York like? I've never been.
So yeah, very interesting that you're in sales also. So a lot of seduction is sales. I'm sure you're familiar with appealing to people's rational buying motives and emotional buying motives. Well, a lot of seduction is the same as appealing to people's emotional buying motive as opposed to rational. Because if you're not ticking the boxes as somebody's type, that's the rational side. You have to make an emotional impact with the person. And that is seduction. That is the missing component. So when we go back to the spark, the butterflies, what they're trying to say is that's the component, that's the invisible or missing component, the silent stealth component, whatever you want to call it, and that is game or seduction. Either one you can use. But so yeah, precisely what you said. What we do is we want to create multiple threads very, very quickly. Also, so once the opening line's done, you got her attention. She likes the opening line is very important for her to ascertain what kind of confidence you have and what your energy is like. So, you know, if your body language is very strong and you're saying it with a very confident or friendly expression, that's going to put her at ease. That's the first thing that she's trying to ascertain is, what's your vibe? You do not get that from dating apps. Never get a vibe from somebody until you meet them. That's why I don't use them and I don't encourage them. I don't encourage people to use them, excuse me. But when you meet someone, the first thing they're trying to look at, two things: how do you look? Are you their type? And are you a weirdo? Literally, that is it. Like, what is his energy like? That's it, the two things. So that's the point of the opening line. But then, yes, you want to build up multiple threads within the conversation. So going back to the New York thing, if you've been to New York, rather than going, yeah, it's a cool place like everyone else, you can say, you know what? It was my second favorite place I've ever been to. Immediately, you're hooking them in. What was your first? Or you could even like say, you know what? I hated New York and I loved it at the same time. Okay, conversational clickbait, right? Person's going to be more invested. So you've got to always be thinking in those early stages, which is the transition point from the opener to full-blown conversation. By the way, that transition is where most guys fall apart like a cheap suit. That is where everything goes wrong. They nail the opener, they can do the next bit, the seduction part, but it's that middle bit before the conversation where they just stumble. And you have to be very quick. And yes, as you say in sales, it is a bit scripted, but it's not scripted as in it's a lie. It's totally like it's a fantasy that you're selling her or something like that, which some guys do. It's more about just making very sure that early stage of the interaction is engaging and it's going to keep her interest, because the last thing you want is for her to mentally and emotionally log out. Because women are very, very quick at decide. They're very, very decisive. And once a woman has said, he's not, you know what, he's not for me, I didn't like that. It's very, very hard to change that decision. As you know, when you're doing sales, if that person has suddenly changed their mind, like, actually, no, this is not for me, it's incredibly, incredibly difficult to make them change their mind again.
Yeah, completely agree, Kezia. One of the things you said was around the rational versus emotional, and linked to that, you were talking about your potential dislike for dating apps. I wonder how much of that is down to the fact that it removes some of the emotional, because rationally we maybe filter and we select for the type of person that we want. So for example, on Hinge, you've maybe got somebody's height, their job, their education, you've got 5 photos of them and some different prompts, Tinder even less than that. And you're maybe just filtering based on purely a rational approach to, am I physically attracted to this person, or the characteristics that I can detail. So it removes that emotional part, which you've underlined there is so important in true attraction.
Yes, that's one of the many reasons why I don't use dating apps and I don't like them. But I do obviously help people that are on dating apps, because, you know, I can't tell people what to do and I can show them how to get better results from their dating apps. But that is one point. But the point that is connected to that is, if I look at all the guys that I've been totally like crazy about, if they had been on Tinder or Hinge, I would have not been interested. A lot of them didn't fit my height category, eye color, and their pictures. A picture is one-dimensional. You can't see the expressions. Expressions is huge, by the way. Expressions are huge. You can see someone's picture, and then as soon as they start talking, it looks like a different person. It's really, really odd. So I just know that from my experience, and probably most people, if they're honest with themselves, the people that they've dated in real life, they would have maybe rejected on a dating app.
Yeah, because they maybe met in person and there were characteristics that attracted them over the physical one-dimensional piece. So that's very, very interesting. We spoke in there, you called out like things that men are bad at is that linking transition phase. What other common mistakes do you see men making?
Okay, thinking that they've got all the time in the world. So a lot of men will go into a conversation and go, look, I've got all this about me, and I'm going to wait for there to be like a sort of plot twist in the conversation. Or there's this great question that she's going to ask me, and then she's going to see this other side to me. And I think men have to put their ego to one side and just say, look, you don't have all the time in the world. You've got a few minutes. It depends what the situation is. So if you approach a woman who's sitting down in the park and she's relaxing, you've got more time than if you're going to approach her and she's in a rush walking in the street. Or if you were sitting next to her at a wedding, you've got a lot more time. So obviously we've got to put it in context there, but you don't have this endless time and think, you know what, I've got all these sort of, what's the word, not timelines, I've forgotten the word, what it's called when you
almost windows of opportunity to move the conversation to where you
want. Just use opportunity, yeah. I mean, you've got these like kind of endless opportunities to like sort of make mistakes and then, you know, redeem yourself later. You just don't. And I think a lot of guys then think, well, you know, she can sod off. Who cares? I don't need to impress that woman. It's like, well, you do. That's the thing. But when I say impress, it doesn't mean tell her what she wants to hear, or that kind of old-fashioned way of when people think about impressing or putting her on a pedestal or anything like that. Being impressive is just showing your most appealing traits in the most attractive way possible, communicate in the most attractive way possible, and actually hiding or camouflaging the things that are holding you back, or possibly reframing them to become points of attraction. This is getting very geeky, I know what I'm saying, like I'm really going into a lot of detail here, but that's only
what I like about a podcast though, Kezia, because we can go right into the depth for an hour and go to these different areas. So no, I completely understand that. So if a guy is making a mistake in terms of hoping that there's going to be this perfect opportunity to answer the perfect question that's going to display his best side, that's an error. What can he be doing instead? Just knowing what he needs to be bringing up more often?
He has to create all his opportunities himself. So I'll give an example. If a lot of guys will say to me, you know what, Kezia, the reason that conversation didn't go well is because she didn't ask me anything about myself, which can happen. Why should she? That's her prerogative. You approached her. You're interested in her. She didn't ask you any questions. So what do? You have to create the opportunities and chances within that interaction. You have to create them. Example, going back to where you're from, it's the most common question. And we need to know, people need to know, what can I do to maximize and gain advantage from that answer I'm going to give her? You've always got a choice. Like, am I going to say, like, okay, so where are you from?
Glasgow.
So if I said to you, hey, where are you from? You say Glasgow, and I go, oh, you know what? I've never been there. What's it like? You've now got an opportunity to either go into tour guide mode and tell me what Glasgow's like, or you're going to take the second opportunity and use it as a way to communicate high value data about yourself. Because I'm not going to say, hey, can you tell me high value data about yourself? It's not going to happen. I'm going to ask really dull can I swear or no?
Yeah, of course you can.
I call them dry as fuck questions. Okay, so women ask dry as fuck questions. Men do too, but doesn't give you permission to answer with a dry as fuck answer. Okay, you've got to be always on the ball. Okay, don't let her set the tone of the conversation. Men have to always be like, what do I need to do next here to sell myself? Okay, for her to say, wow, I like this guy. That's interesting. Like I said, there's no plot twist, okay? You're not going to have this moment like half an hour later when she's emotionally and mentally logged out where she's going to suddenly go, oh, that's interesting about him. So back to this. So Glasgow. So you'd have to find how, and I can give you an example of how to do it, how you can use that to now communicate those appealing things about you, which are not noticeable straight away. So let's take it to London, okay? So I live in London. Someone says to me, hey, what's it like there? I want to impress them. Do I say, hey, well, you know, London's it's a bit expensive, weather's hit and miss, but we've got really nice museums? Boring. Yeah, that's snooze. Or am I going to say something like this? London. Well, first of all, London's great, actually, because we've got this really cool kind of melting pot of different cultures. And I just love meeting people like that have come from different backgrounds and different viewpoints. What else? Okay, we've got the best parks in Europe. And that's great for me because I don't always want to be in the gym. Sometimes I just want to like have like these really long runs in the sunshine, enjoying the, you know, the park. What else? Oh, you know what it is? It's hard to explain, but there's this energy in London that you don't get anywhere. So I've been to Tokyo, I've been to LA, I've been to New York, and they all have their own energy. But London has this, how can I put it? It's like this undercurrent of excitement. You only get it in London. Now, what I've done there is I've kept to the answer, which is, to your question, which is what's London like? But now I've communicated, I'm sociable. That was the first point, okay? I'm sociable and open-minded. Second is that I go to the gym. Third is that I'm well-traveled. I always drop in Tokyo, okay? Because it sounds like a high flyer. That's what I want to, you might turn around and say, I don't really want to communicate that, but fine, that's you. You have to sit down, write down the list of what you want to communicate. I'm a bit of a show-off. I am a bit of an attention seeker. I like people to know that I've traveled, right? So when you say Tokyo, people immediately go, that could be the only country I've ever been to. And people will still think that I'm a jet setter because of that one city, right? So I sneak that in there. And the fifth one is that I'm drawn to exciting experiences. So you see, you think, how can she get all that information from that one question? You can do it.
It gives her the opportunity to dive into one of those different areas. Oh
yeah, I mean, then you've already flooded the interaction with all these interesting threads. We call them high caliber threads, interesting points of conversation. But the most important thing is that you're communicating your appeal. So guys need to sit down. This is a mistake. You ask what mistakes they made. They don't know how to sell themselves. They're like, I like myself. I don't really know what I've got going for me that I can sort of, what am I bringing to the table? They have to sit down and think, okay, my kindness and my values, that's what makes me appealing. Okay, let's get that in the forefront of the conversation then. Don't wait for the plot twist. Don't wait for that. It's not going to happen. That's a mistake that men wasted opportunities. Men often, when they like a woman, and women do this also, by the way, this is something I still do now when I meet a guy I like, is they go to scarcity mindset rather than abundance mindset.
Okay.
So abundance is like
becoming a little bit needy.
Yes, and it's completely normal. And it's because we finally find someone that we're very attracted to, and we don't want to lose them, because it is rare when you get that feeling of like, I don't mean like you find them appealing. I mean, when you're really attracted to someone and you don't want to mess it up. So you become needy and you start playing not to lose rather than playing to win. Big mistake. So you want to always be portraying that you have an abundance lifestyle, abundance mindset, other opportunities. There's the door kind of, you've got an open door policy. Like, if you call me, fine. If you don't, whatever. Rock up in trainers, like you would with someone you're not interested in, rather than a suit, right? Like, I always know that the guys that I'm not really keen on, but they like me, is the ones I don't wear any makeup for. Now, I look dreadful without makeup. I really do, okay? But what is it saying when I don't wear makeup? She doesn't really care. And that's attractive. She doesn't care. She's not putting any effort into me. It's frustrating for them, but they get it. Like, she doesn't need to impress me, but she's putting makeup on for that guy. And do you see what I mean here? It's the abundance thing. And then obviously it's
the time thing as well, Kezia. So if you are constantly available, maybe only to this particular person, that's coming from a place of scarcity as well. Like, you'll move your diary around to flex to their needs, or you're like, oh yeah, I'm free Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and you're opening yourself up to, I will do whatever needs to be done to reach you. Whereas if you're in an abundance mindset, you may be like, well, actually, I can't really do Friday or Saturday. Sunday, I could maybe do the afternoon. You're phrasing things a little bit differently to make yourself seem less available immediately for that person.
Oh, that's the big one. Yeah, obviously, it's the time thing. So when I say abundance, scarcity, I'm already like thinking, because I'm thinking about things like you've got other options, you've got other people in your life. You're not putting all your eggs in that one basket. That's very important. People don't like that. I don't like it. You don't like it. We meet someone, you're like really, you like me already that much? You don't even know me. Fuck off. And it makes us like not appreciate them. And have you noticed, like, so, well, I've taught guys this, where they're in a position where they've been out with a girl, just like, you said, and they're always been available for the girl. She's starting to resent him for it, almost resent him. Like, she's like, oh, he's just so predictable almost. I know what he's going to say next, do next. He's always going to be available for me. I'm always his top priority. They start resenting the poor guy. So I'm like, okay, you know what? Time for like, I don't have time for you. It's time for, I don't have time for you. Okay. So the phone, you're busy. You become busier. You're a man in demand. You've got shit going on in your life. She's no longer, you're no longer orbiting her anymore. Okay. And what happens is there's a change. The woman doesn't just start reevaluating and thinking, what am I losing here? Because that's very appealing when someone feels like they're losing something. Okay. Not only is that happening, but she is now seeing him in a different light. She is starting to perceive him as somebody else. This is not the person he used to be. And she doesn't second guess him as much. But yeah, I mean, totally. Like I say to my students, if a girl, this is very difficult because you need so much discipline in this. If you like somebody and they're like, hey, do you want to meet tomorrow? You want to meet them tomorrow. You really do. And then you've got to turn around and you've got nothing to do tomorrow either. But you've got to play this game, which is, you know what, I'd love to. I can't do tomorrow. I've got commitments. Hey, let's do Friday. That's my day off. And it's a risk because you're thinking, oh, shit, what if she... And we start thinking, we come from that that scarcity mindset, so poisonous, because you've done it, I've done it, set them thinking, oh, like, if they might not like me anymore because I was busy tomorrow. They might think I'm arrogant, or they might meet somebody else in that 3 days, and it's scary because we think, oh my God, I might lose out. But actually, how many times this person said, you know what, fuck you, you won't meet me tomorrow, I don't ever want to see you again. It never happens.
Well, that'd be a red flag anyway. If somebody behaves that way, you'd be like, I probably don't want to associate with them very often.
Well, you know what I mean? If they sort of change their mind because you wouldn't see them the next day because you had commitments, that would be, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, exactly that. One of the elements that was springing off my head there when you were talking about maybe having scarcity is almost being too nice as well. That's a trap that a lot of guys fall into. I've heard you speak about it before. Why is being the nice guy such a common mistake for guys?
So that was going to be my next mistake that men make. But these are all
We're on the same wavelength, Kezia. Here we go. We're working our way through.
Vibing. They're all interconnected, by the way, these things. And it does lead up to the nice guy. The nice guy has scarcity mindset. And it's going back to that line I used earlier, which is he's always playing not to lose. He doesn't believe himself, the nice guy. Now, we have to separate here the great guy, because a lot of people think the nice guy is like that kind, thoughtful person. No, I'm not talking about that guy. I'm not. It's like nothing to do with it. I've met some awesome guys who are so kind, so loving, so generous. And I would never say that's a nice guy, I'm not interested. I might not be attracted for different reasons, but it wouldn't be because of their kindness. But nice guys, they are the ones who are holding back all the time. They're holding back, making the move, showing their intent, building attraction. They're playing it super safe. Again, playing not to lose. They're sneaky as fuck, nice guys also, because they think that they're going to somehow carry on, just sort of bending their own reality in accordance with hers, agreeing with everything she says, being that shoulder she can cry on when the bad guy treats her like, shit, you know, I'll be there for you. He's playing this like long game, but it never ever works, is what they don't realize. It's not like long game and it works at the end. It doesn't work because he thinks he's going to sort of get in there under the radar. Like, she's going to wake up when I go, my God, you know, this guy, he's so nice. Why didn't I see it? It will never, ever happen. A girl will not fall for a guy because he's nice or sleep with a guy because he's nice. It's never happened, ever. I've never heard someone, I had to rip his clothes off because he was so nice, you know. He got me because he was so nice and agreed with everything I said and didn't seem to have any other opinions, you know, and there was no conflict. And he, in fact, he just said nothing really the whole night, and I had to have him. No, they liked a guy because he was kind or great or funny or whatever, but it was not because he's nice. So nice guys just give watered down versions of themselves, very watered down. I find with nice guys, not nice guys, they're not. They're just people who put on a persona. They're using a game plan which makes them come across as bland, forgettable, and replaceable. But we don't say that about people. We just say nice.
It's disingenuous.
If you met a girl on a date and she was bland, forgettable, and replaceable, you would say, because you're a polite person, you would say, nice girl, not for me. And we all know what you mean. She bored you. That's it.
Yeah, it's just another word, isn't it? No, I can completely see that. And I think when you're talking about good and great guys and kind, these are like far more powerful adjectives to describe somebody rather than, like you say, nice is very bland. Whereas a good guy will do things that are potentially under the banner of nice. They're good, nice behaviors, but they're not boring behaviors. They're actually like virtuous.
Yeah, and I think great guy is an awesome guy because you've got the bad guy and you've got the good guy. Now, what's interesting, if we're going to go a little bit more in depth with this, is you've got so there are some bad guys out there who are really not nice guys, and they actually don't do very well with women. So there's a whole big kind of, people say, oh, evil's attractive and alluring. And I see what they mean. I see about the appeal of that kind of guy. But guys who are really not nice people, like through and through, there's no redeeming features, don't do well with women. So I dated a guy who was like that. And as soon as I realized that it wasn't just because he owned a nightclub and he was part of, I've got to be careful what I say here, but I'm just going to leave it at that because I've got to be careful. But he was kind of like a well-known kind of dangerous guy and all that. He was good looking. And I was kind of, I was 19, quite attracted to that. And then within a couple of days, just like, I looked at his book collection, because we had books in those days and DVDs, and you could tell a lot about someone's book collection. And it was all stuff like that, the Mafia and Scarface. I was like, oh.
The modern version would be like somebody's YouTube search history. You quickly find out what's going on inside their head.
Yeah, we don't want to look at our history on our phone searches. Thank you very much. No, mine's really boring, actually. It was so funny. By the way, just off topic, I went to get my phone fixed at Mac, and they're like, do you want to clear your history first? I was like, no, fine. He's like, are you sure you want to clear your history? I was like, no. And he looked at me and said, I see why now. It's the most boring history I've ever seen. Yeah.
He was judging you. Would hope it'd be a bit more exciting.
Honestly, wouldn't you prefer to have a boring Google history search than red alert?
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway,
you assessed this guy's like what he was consuming and what he was watching, and you found that actually he's not.
He was one-dimensional.
Yeah.
He was one-dimensional. He was just a bad person. He didn't seem to care about anyone. I said, I can't be doing this. Couldn't be doing that. So then I met another guy who was like him a little bit, quite like a bad persona, but he had this really loving side to him. And he was like, he loved children and animals. He was so sweet like that. And he used to do really kind things. He used to like go to help charity, but he still had this bad boy persona. And that was the contrast that was so attractive. So if we spin it now to the good guy, if he has a little bit of that dark element as a contrast, that's what's attractive. They're not one-dimensional. So I went out with a really great guy. I remember like came, you know, really loving, kind, very that good guy type, borderline nice almost, you know, that type. Yep. But then he was sexually very aggressive and not in
but he could escalate in a way that was acceptable and arousing rather than like aggressive. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, like he would say, like I remember we went on a date, and this is before we slept with each other. This is very personal, but that was years ago now, and I'm too old to care. So we were having dinner, and I remember just thinking that I really liked him, but I thought he was missing that edge, and that's what we say, the edge. And then he just leaned over and said, I just really want to fuck you. He said it like that, and it was really kind of powerful the way he said it. It was like sort of something that the bad guy would say more, and it was that contrast. And I think that's really, really important, is getting that contrast right. And equally, a lot of men will say to me, a lot of men like very dominant women. They like the kind of outspoken, fiery woman. But you know why they like her? It's because she shows this vulnerable side. And they said that's what's attractive. If she was just like, you know,
she can be alpha outside and like successful, but for him that she's submissive in the bedroom, or differential when arranging where they're going to go for dinner and all these different
or she cries at night or something like that, or something like that's very vulnerable and sweet and almost childlike, and it's a huge contrast to the persona that she puts on for other people. And equally, men who like very shy, quiet girls, they often say to me, oh, I like her shy. She's shy and quiet in front of people, but you know, in the bedroom, she's this and that, and she's got this other side to her. So play on that contrast, the shadow sides a lot. So never be like, just I'm the great guy, you know, I'm a superhero, I do charity work, I'm nice to everyone, because there's always got to be the shadow side. I'm getting a bit too much. It's a bit technical here, so
No, I'm happy with that, because there's elements of like alpha around this conversation, and in a society where our media typically portray masculinity now as toxic and negative, do women still want an alpha man?
Yeah, straightforward. Yeah, what an alpha man is not what the media is portraying it to be. So masculinity, they're saying, is toxic. But if I said to you, well, hold on, let's just go through a list of things that make a guy an alpha male. He has a positive outlook on life. He is a solutions person. He doesn't catastrophize things. He's unapologetic. He believes in his self-trajectory and his destiny. He is completely, again, unapologetic about his values, his principles. He goes for what he wants, doesn't bend to his reality in the cause of other people. That's just a few. That's just a few there, okay? Has massive self-belief, confidence in himself. Now, just take what I've said. Is there anything that I said from that list that you could possibly think is slightly toxic in any way?
No, unless you took some of them to the extremes around confidence, you would turn it into arrogance. But you've used terms.
Oh, I didn't say arrogant. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've moved all these terms to be in a positive light that people would channel positively and women would find attractive, because you'd much rather somebody was with a positive outlook. They were very certain in what they said. They didn't apologize about who they were. They weren't like second guessing themselves at all times. That's all qualities that women, evolutionary and in the modern day, respond very well to. So no, I can completely see that despite what the mass media might tell us, women would probably still want somebody to have alpha positive qualities.
Yes, and that doesn't mean being macho, man. You see that you can be a very quiet person, and you know, you could be working in a library or something and not be muscly or anything like that, but still be extremely alpha. Just, you can have all those qualities I just listed, and you don't have to be, again, some superhero or a fireman or muscly guy. I know a lot of guys who have got incredible bodies who work out in the gym, and they are beta males. They're beta males. I see them on YouTube a lot. I mean, I'm not going to say names, but there's a lot of beta men on YouTube trying to give dating advice and things. They've got podcasts and stuff. It's quite dangerous, actually. And because I've been doing this for so long, I know what's beta. I know. And when I say, apparently I have to say beta. Someone says, don't say beta, you got to say beta. I don't know which one's which now. The Americans say beta. And you can feel like, God, they're so needy, these guys. They keep talking about their cars. They keep talking about their Ferraris. They're so needy. They need to prove something, you know. And because they're quite muscly and they drive a Ferrari and they speak loudly with a loud voice, people go, see, toxic alpha masculinity. There you go. And I was like, that's not alpha. That's toxic, as in the person is needy and fucked up and needs to see a psychiatrist, fine. But it's not masculine either, what they're doing.
Because they're lacking...
Guys are acting like beta females, believe it or not. They're doing beta female game.
Yeah, because it's purely about the signalling through status, which of course has a role in giving you confidence. But if it's purely based on that, so for example, you're calling out people there with particular sports cars and very focused on their physique and their image, if that's all that they're using to attract and to validate themselves, then of course they have beta qualities where they're needing the gratification and support to validate the position they're in, to feel like they are up on top of the tree and somebody that's confident. But you're saying there that a true alpha quality is certainty, unapologeticness about who you are. Whereas these guys, if the dynamic shifted where it wasn't fashionable or powerful to be muscular, best believe they would never have aspired to be it, because it's not, it wouldn't have the rewards that they deem it to have.
Can you imagine James Bond going, I've just parked the Aston Martin outside, you know, reading a loud voice for the women. Oh, be like, oh no. That everything James Bond would stand for would just be like, would just collapse, that one sentence. The Aston's parked outside, you know.
I do think it's interesting.
On the table.
I do think it's interesting though that you've used James Bond there as an alpha male. A lot of the modern films that we see now, there's a big focus on making James Bond quite a flawed character, because of course the alpha male has to have problems. I think I've heard you speak before about Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders. He is very alpha, isn't he? And of course you're swooning there for the people that are on audio only. He has very alpha qualities, but they underline that this is of course something that's quite flawed. And I think there is an attempt by the media to undermine masculine men as potentially like damaged as well.
But okay, I'm gonna right. My response to this is damaged men are also quite appealing. No, this is it. Okay, so let's take Thomas Shelby and let's take James Bond. Okay, two good examples. Tough guys in the sense, like, you know, they're everything that I've said, you know, they're unapologetic, they go for what they want, they believe in themselves, they've got all those, but they've got this side to them, which is they're going through some sort of pain, and it's a darkness about them almost. And that's actually very attractive. You know why? Because they're not catastrophizing over it. They're not saying, help me to a woman or anyone. They're not saying, hey, I need help. And, you know, I can't, they sort of, it's there, but they get on with it. And that's very attractive to a woman. Women love that in a man. But it's when a guy gets needy and starts going, I can't cope, that's when it's like, right, game over. I can't deal with this. That's not, an alpha male looks for solutions. So I've got no problem with James Bond. James Bond always had pain. James Bond, remember he lost his wife in...
yeah.
So they always show these glimmers where they did it in a couple of the films where he suddenly goes quiet. And he shows it is a vulnerable side, but it's not vulnerable as in he's falling to pieces and can't cope. That's my point. Now, if they start making James Bond and the next one is like somebody that's going to counselling and he's a mess, and I don't mean he has like one drunken night or something where he's a bit out of control. I meant like he's like falling to pieces and he's crying and he can't cope and he's that would be something different. That would no longer be the alpha male. I'm not saying, I've got to be careful here. Like, people do have problems and people do need to address those problems. And they need to be proactive about addressing those problems. But obviously these are films, okay, that we're talking about. These are not real people, these are characters. So they're not going to be as multidimensional as a real person. But what I'm trying to get to the point here is that women are attracted to men that have a pain point in some sort. He's not completely like the Iron Man. There is this vulnerability, but it's how he expresses it. It can be expressed in an attractive way, or it can be expressed in a needy way. And it's the needy way that will put off the woman.
No, completely understood. How has the dating market changed since the pandemic?
Ah, good question. Very, very interesting. So obviously when things were like in lockdown and stuff, people turned to dating apps and things like that heavily. We did okay with our business. We just put everything online, and we got loads of people who wanted to do an online course anyhow for years. So we actually, that was, I think I've been doing this now for, my company's coming up to 10 years old. No, sorry, 12 years old. And that was our 4th best financial year. The pandemic, can you believe that? But what happened is when restrictions started lifting, people seemed to just not want to have anything to do with a screen anymore. And we opened up the mastery program as soon as we could. And the responses that our students were getting were like, we've never seen this. Like, they were good, but the kind of responses they were getting were insane, because people just like, I need to speak to human beings. So I think, because I don't want to get too much into I'm very anti-lockdown. I'm extremely opposed to any form of lockdown, like any restrictions. But I'm not. A lot of people are going to give me shit for that. That's fine. They've got their. I've got people in my family who are pro-lockdown. We talk about, whatever. I accept other people's points of view. But I feel that there's, unfortunately, still slightly this, could there be another lockdown one day now? It's like in our psyche, yeah? And I think that makes people actually, in a weird way, say, sod that, I don't have time I'll go on those online apps when we're in a lockdown. I'm going to embrace it all now. Because remember, they opened things, they closed and opened. So it gave that idea, things can close again. So I think people, even they're saying, hey, COVID's gone, party time, I think there's still, at the back of their mind, it could happen.
There's ambient anxiety, and it's actually one of the ways that there's been a seizing of control away from people during this period. And we won't go off on that tangent. We've both
but I think we're roughly on the same page.
We've both spoken to Zubi on our podcast, so you can probably guess our thoughts in that regard. So yeah, I think there's an ambient anxiety. So you think that since the pandemic, people are being more prone to action, which is a positive thing?
I think I think definitely. I think there's still a heavy use of dating apps. It's still heavy, but it has decreased since the pandemic. Yeah. It's very interesting. People are going to I've noticed something in the streets and things like that. I've noticed more people reading books and stuff. And people like who are like your age and stuff and younger, I've seen people just like reading books. And I saw someone doing a water painting the other day. And then I started asking people, have you noticed there's still a lot of people staring in phones, but there's a shift. And they go, yes, I've seen a slight shift now. And there's a lot of podcasts out right now talking about getting off the internet, getting off social media, especially detoxes. I did one a few weeks ago. And I think people are returning in a way to real life experiences, and we're all aware of that algorithm and how we are so controlled by it. And we don't want to be controlled by an algorithm. I don't want to meet my future partner because the algorithm spluttered him out, when my client said something, it was disgusting, but he was funny what he said. He goes, I don't want to meet my future wife because I was taking crap on the toilet.
It's true though. Yeah.
That's what he said. He goes, I don't want to tell my children I met your mother when I was taking a crap on the toilet and I was looking at Tinder. And I was like, that's God, does it come to that? And I know it's a bit disgusting what you said, but it's like, I don't want to meet someone because that algorithm thought that my photo was in the top 10 that day. I was like, yeah. And so I went out with 2 guys during the pandemic, and I met them organically. They came up to me in a park, both of them in a park.
Really? That's the
Two
place to
different
go then?
parks.
Two different parks.
Parks are good actually to meet women. Parks are really good because you have to remember people who are in parks are not in a rush.
Yeah, there's time for them to have a conversation. They're not rushing off to the next appointment. They're there to loiter and enjoy the space.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Just on a side note on dating apps, I think one of the big challenges they have, and I won't set you off too far, Kezia, is that a lot of people get the benefit of the dopamine of the swiping and matching. So if I match with a really good looking girl, I'm like, oh, it's great. That feels good that she finds me attractive, I find her attractive. But there's a lack of action to escalate to meeting. However, I would caveat that with after the first lockdown, I think females in particular, from my own experience on Instagram and Tinder, were a lot more forward to wanting to meet, which ties in a little bit with what you're doing, but they're still using the tools that we could maybe gravitate towards and just sit and look at the screens rather than taking action. It'd be easy for them to do that.
You are 100% right, because they are confidence boosters, these things. I put up an article on my Twitter. I need to send it to you. It's a really good article about this woman says, I'm only using dating apps to make me feel good. That's all I'm using them for. She was just honest about it. She said, I've realized I'm just using it to give me like a boost of confidence.
Yeah. I've been at a photo shoot before for a fitness brand, and the girls there, one of them in particular had a Tinder. She had a boyfriend, but she had a Tinder with her Instagram handle in the bio. Yeah. And she basically used it just to get loads of followers.
That's old, yeah. That's really old now.
She had no interest at all in chatting to guys or swipe. She wasn't even swiping. It was just there with a few photos of her and her thing. And her boyfriend was fine with it because she was using her Instagram for business purposes. But what a life.
Yeah, I don't like it at all. Horrible. I really don't like those things. And my sister, for instance, she uses dating apps. She's 10 years younger than me. It's more her age group, but she uses dating apps. And she said, and she's a pretty girl. She's a pretty girl, you know, and she says, I connect with all these people and we never meet. They don't want to meet the guys. And she goes, this is guys that don't want to meet. And I'm like, yeah, but because they haven't met you, you're replaceable. The next person's going to be better than you or not better than you. Who cares? They're on a game. It's a game. It's like playing the fruit machines, the one-armed bandits. You know, it's just like playing these. You get addicted to it. You get addicted to it. It's like, I said this to my mom the other day. She took my mother, so funny. She goes to car boot sales. She loves them. So I stayed with her. She's like, oh, let's go. Oh, I'm not going to a car boot sale, Mom. And she's like, no, let's do it. And I did it. And then I was like, I can see why this is addictive, because she starts going every week and thinking, you're going to find something, you're going to find something. And she never buys anything. And I'm like, oh my God, the dating apps like the car boot sales, everyone's just going around thinking, yeah, next week or next time I look, there'll be something better.
Oh, that is a really good analogy, actually, isn't it? Because you are just window shopping, aren't you? In the expectation that there'll be some amazing thing that goes your way that you need to buy.
Looking for, and it is all junk. You know why? Because no one looks like those pictures. It's all bullshit. I don't care. There's very, very rarely you meet someone and go, oh my God, you're better in real life. Like, remember, like when I was growing up, people look better in real life than their photos. Now, this was interesting. No one took a good photograph because you had like one chance with like a camera with flash, and you used to show a photograph to your friends going, I promise you she doesn't look like that. She's much better than that. Like, no, I don't want to meet them or him or her. You had like a school photo, that was it. And then you meet them and be like, oh, they're much better. It's the opposite now. So, and that's for every single person. We just don't look like our pictures. Some of us look more like them others, but it's a picture, right? Yeah. It's our best angle. So then when you meet that person, they're immediately disappointed. They're immediately disappointed. They're not massively disappointed maybe, but immediately disappointed. That's not a good start. Whereas when I meet somebody that's chatting me up in the street, I'm not going to be disappointed when I see them. There's no way. I know what they look like. I know their facial expressions. I know their height. I know everything. It's fine. The only thing that can disappoint me is if their conversation's bad or whatever. But I'm not going in there with that immediately, oh, look what he looks like. Doesn't look like the picture. Right, I've got to go. You see what I mean? So you're already starting off on a bad foot.
Yeah, definitely. And I do think women are much better at taking photos than men, though, because the number of women that you match with that don't look like their photos is definitely higher than guys, because we're probably, we don't spend as much. I mean, I spend a lot of time on Instagram taking photos and whatnot, but even then, I've been in gyms and people are surprised that I'm taller than I look on Instagram, and I'm like, I must be doing Instagram all wrong if you don't think I'm at
How
least.
tall are you?
I'm 5'10", but apparently on Instagram,
Yeah, I thought you were shorter than that.
yeah.
I think I checked something that you sent me and I thought, oh, he's about 5'5". I thought you were like my height.
Not good, Kezia. I need to work on that. I need to work on that.
Who knows? Like, people think I'm taller. Do you understand? Like, everyone thinks when they meet me, I'm going to be 5'10". I'm going to be this sort of athletic woman. I'm very.
It's your presence, though, and how you hold yourself and how you speak. Maybe
I'm a very small person, as in I'm. What's the word? Like a small framed person, and I'm quite short and thin. So they're kind of like, oh, I thought you were going to be this tall, athletic person. So yeah, I mean, you know, at least your one's good though. People go, oh, you're taller than I thought. I mean, most guys don't get that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But we're mentioning social media there, Kezia. Where should people head towards if they want to continue the conversation with you?
Okay, so there's my website, kezia-noble.com. You can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Kezia Noble again, and my Instagram is at Kezia Noble 18.
Okay, I'll link the Instagram and I'll link your website in the show notes below. Thank you very much for joining me, Kezia. Thank you to you, the listener, for tuning in. I'm sure you've enjoyed this one. If you have done, take a screenshot, pop it on your Instagram story, tag me at call.cambro, and I'll be back to speak to you all again very, very soon.